Hi everyone, this is Diva from Blood Hunter, and you're listening to the Metal Pit podcast.
Welcome to the Metal Pit podcast and welcome to 2024. Happy New Year to everyone listening. This is our first podcast of the new year, of course, and this podcast is, of course, connected to our website, The Metal Pit, which is themetalpit.org. And we are doing we're doing a review of the year 2023 because of the website, because usually our podcasts, we're just talking about a classic metal album. But this episode is we're reviewing the year in metal in 2023. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram at The Metal Pit and on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com at The Metal Pit 666. I am your host, Blake, and today I have three writers with The Metal Pit for me. One's not a writer, but I'm calling her a writer today. So I have Jason, Kim, and Billy. How are you guys all doing today?
Oh, good, Blake.
Hey,
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Woo!
Okay. So I asked you three to join me on this episode since the three of you have been to the most concerts of any of the writers of the Metal Pit have been to. I've only been to one. So I thought, I don't know much about it. So I got you three on so we could talk about it. And you've been to many. Do you know how many concerts you've been to this year? Any of you? Did you count or did you lose count?
Oh God, no idea. But I have a feeling Billy's been to more than me.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess I was plus 30 for sure.
Billy goes to everyone, I think.
Yeah, well, Billy lives in the city, so it's easier
Yeah,
for him.
He even goes to Blue Rodeo.
It's true.
Hey,
All
why
them
not?
boys this year?
Well, I hear Honeymoon Suite has a new album coming out next year. But anyway, I digress. Okay.
I would go to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to start with, we'll start with Kim. Kim and Jason both went to Beyond the Gates Festival. I hope I got the right name there. Back in, when was that? March, I think, right?
August.
August, sorry. It's already. So Kim, do you want to tell us a little bit about that festival? That was your first time going. You want to talk about that a little bit, please?
Sure. So Beyond the Gates in Bergen, Norway, takes place over 4 days, and it's one that it's been on my list for a long time, but getting to Europe is a big deal, and you kind of got to pick and choose and like go to one or two at a time. So anyways, this was the first year going to Beyond the Gates. It was really cool, really special because I have a lot of friends there. So going to this festival and like in across the world and being able to hang out with friends was really cool. The venues were amazing, the lineup was amazing, lots of black metal, but then they would throw something in like Deicide, which was absolutely amazing, and maybe we'll get into that later. And Perturbator, seeing Perturbator was definitely on my bucket list, and being in a very large venue full of metalheads dancing was something I never thought I'd see, and I definitely want to do it again. Lots of fun.
For context, Perturbator is a synthwave band, not a metal band at all.
Yeah, but I think like dude used to he started out as a black metal band. Yeah, so there's a connection there, and it definitely fits. The venues were really cool. I think the first couple of nights were at a venue that was like an old fishing warehouse or something. So it actually had like a couple of venues, so you would go see the first band, and then in like the smaller venue, and then you would move over to the larger venue, and they would have the next band on in, let's say, 15 minutes. So it was nonstop, like you didn't have to wait, kind of like you do at a normal show, and back and forth. So that venue was very cool. There was a huge patio on the docks. You could look at the Norwegian fjords, and something that's really cool about Norway is I guess like this kind of music is much more accepted. So, you know, you'd go out on the patio at this building, which also had restaurants and, you know, hotels and stuff in it, because it's just this massive building, and you'd sit down and there'd be like 60% metalheads, but then you'd see like, you know, this elderly couple having their dinner and wine because they were at the building for whatever other reason. And it's not a thing, like it's just normal there. And that's cool because you don't get that here. Like black metal, especially in North America, to the norm, is scary, and you know. So that was cool. And then of course Grieghallen, famous Grieghallen, absolutely beautiful venue, newer, beautiful, and I think Mayhem recorded an album there. It has a lot of like history in black metal in Norway, and it was really cool to spend a couple of nights there. My favorite part about the festival, I think, was just having such a good group of friends with me. Some people that we know in Holland came up, and you know, of course, our Norwegian friends, and then just meeting new friends. I think after the first night, we just like had this crew of like 10 people that just stuck together throughout the whole festival, and now we're like friends for life. So it was really great. It was run very professionally, and yeah, that was my experience. What do you think, Jason?
Yeah, I think you pretty much nailed it. For me, it was really cool being a longtime Norwegian black metal fan going back to the mid 90s, experiencing some of this, especially Enslaved, who's a classic, legendary Norwegian black metal band, play in the venue that they recorded one of their early albums in. Was super, super awesome. And as Kim mentioned, Grieghallen has a lot of history behind it. Mayhem recorded their legendary album Die Mysterious Dom Satanas in Grieghallen, and Enslaved recorded their Eld album in Grieghallen. So just standing in that venue and experiencing Norwegian black metal. Dimmu Borgir played, and experiencing black metal in the venue.
It was their anniversary.
Yeah, it was their anniversary. So they did
an
anniversary
their 40th, show. Right?
Yeah.
40
no, 30th. So it was 35.
No,
yeah.
35. Yeah, because we actually caught Dimmu's 30th anniversary at Midgard's 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So
in Norway,
we were lucky.
Yeah.
We were lucky to catch both. And you actually reminded me, one of the cool things about going to these Norwegian festivals, because there's so much history in black metal Norway, there's always these tours that go on during these festivals, like both in Bergen and also if you go to Inferno in Oslo. So you can go to like Fantoftstad Church to see like the church that Varg Vikernes burnt down. You can go to, you know, Nesblood record store in Oslo if you go to Inferno, and you know, see sort of like the roots of the black metal scene there in Oslo, and Euronymous, and because he owned that, and you can go downstairs and they have this museum for Euronymous. And another cool thing that we did on that trip actually was we went to the Norwegian
National
Library in Oslo, and they had this badass black metal exhibit there. And you go in, it's all dark, and like they're playing black metal, and they have all these TV screens up of interviews and like, you know, shit that went down in the church burnings and people getting arrested, people getting murdered, and they had like all this memorabilia, and you just walk through it.
And it was crazy to see when we were walking through it. There was an old couple, and you could go to a TV and put headphones on and watch a video from like, say, like Satyricon or Enslaved or Mayhem, and just seeing like just normal old people just like putting the headphones on, learning the history, and just kind of rocking out to the music. Yeah.
Yeah.
We were like, that's super cool that they. But the funny thing is, Kim mentioned that this music was reviled back in the day by just a typical Norwegian, you know, person, but now it's completely embraced. It's their biggest cultural export. So yeah, I think the festival really kind of showcases how far along not only Norwegian black metal, but extreme metal in general has come. Because like Kim said, there were other bands. Deicide played. There were lots of death metal bands that played. It was a nice kind of
Yeah, like
mix
Blood
of,
Incantation,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know, played. It was mostly black metal. Like, got to see Gorgoroth for the first time, which was really
Primordial,
cool. Primordial, yeah, like
which was
kind of
bucket
black
list.
folk.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were so many bucket lists on that lineup for
And then there were
me.
like bands like oh Creator played.
Oh
They
yeah,
yeah, that
that's
was
right.
super awesome. So yeah, very, very cool festival. I think that's
And you're
all I have.
going back this year. Do you know the bands that are going to be there? Like, do you know what bands you're looking forward to, or are they not announced yet? Maybe all of
They're all
them.
Yeah,
announced. Yeah.
Oh, are they? Okay.
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
Actually, a lot of bands we've already seen, I think, but there
Satyricon
are.
is playing 2 sets, one old school set and one more modern set of their material. But Kim and I went to Norway in 2018 and caught Satyricon, just a one-off show that we traveled over there to see in Trondheim. So this will be our second time seeing them.
Yeah, so it's Mayhem, which is cool. I mean, we've seen Mayhem many times, but they're doing like a 40th anniversary.
Mhm.
It's Behemoth, which again seen many times, but like not recently. So
No.
it'll be cool to see them again. Satyricon doing their 2 sets. There's a Bathory tribute show. They're gonna do a tribute to Bathory for 1 set, and there's like all kinds of
Supergroup, right?
yeah, yeah,
Like of Norwegian
like
black metal.
notorious black metal musicians like getting together to do this Bathory things, which is gonna be really
Yeah.
cool. There's also Venom's gonna be there, Wataine's gonna be there, Treldom is gonna play it, and it's actually gonna be their first live show ever.
Which is Gaul from Gorgoroth. If you know that documentary where he's like Satan. Um, it's his first band, so they haven't played ever. So that's cool. Oh, and
That's-
then one other thing, Kim and I went to a wine tasting in Bergen that Gaul from Gorgoroth hosted because he's a big wine connoisseur. So we bought tickets and we went to a very exclusive wine tasting and got really drunk in the middle of the afternoon with another Canadian couple. We sat at their table from Calgary who were in Norway too. And
It was kind of like breakfast because, you know, when you go to these festivals, you're up so late and then
yeah,
you get up late and then I think we got up and we had to run. We were literally
we were late.
running
Yeah, we were
because we
running
were
to the
late
venue. Yeah.
and we got there and I don't even know if we had eaten yet and then we were just drinking
No.
like I don't know, like 12 different kinds of wine
For
and
3 hours.
it was the best day.
Yeah. With Gaul. You can't ask for
With
anything better.
Gaul.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, awesome. Okay, now we'll switch to Billy here now about the same time, because I know you're gone at the same time. Wacken was going on in Germany, and Billy was there for his 10th time. And we already did a
Wow.
podcast, me and Billy, on that, his experience there this year. But we'll talk about it a little, Billy. I know you had bad weather conditions there this year. You can talk about it a little bit if you'd like again, please.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I think this was definitely a year of bad weather. So Germany was just hit with like rain for a week before the festival. So probably about 3 days before it was set to start, at least 40% of the festival grounds were flooded. So ultimately, they basically had to tow everybody 1 car at a time in these giant tractors to get them on the festival grounds. So long story short, I mean, for the first time in Wacken history, basically they had to shut the grounds down, and 35,000 people with tickets were not allowed in. They were basically told to stay home. Just unfortunately with the mud in the grounds, there was no way to get them in. So really the festival was, you know, to sum it up, muddy, cold, raining every single day. Towards the end, we got some nicer weather, but again, as I said in the podcast, kudos to the organizers. I mean, they did everything they could, and unfortunately, we had some really late starts on the first day, which is incredibly rare, right? I mean, the one thing Germans can do really well is timelines and being organized. So that was very unusual, but understandable given the weather. And then, you know, once we got through that first day, the next 3 days, everything aside from the mud all over the place. All the bands came on perfectly, right on schedule. So it turned out quite good. Obviously my view is, one of the 50,000 who got in. I know the 35,000 that didn't get in were not too happy. And,
Yeah.
My view is they probably should have got like a free ticket or a half price ticket
To next year. Yeah.
yeah, and unfortunately all they got is a half price t-shirt. And so that's not very good, right? Like,
Burn. That
we'll
sucks.
give you a t-shirt for $10 instead of $20. So that's all they got. But again, knock on wood, I got on there early on the ground, so I was pretty good. But overall, great festival, amazing bands there. One new cool thing this year is they ended up doing these drone shows, and so like when Halloween played at the end of the night. They had all the drones up in the air doing Halloween, doing the pumpkins, doing the dancing pumpkins. It was pretty cool. And they did that
That's
for
cool.
Iron Maiden. They did it for all the stuff. So despite, the mess that was going on and all the extra expenses to keep this festival going, and of course the lost ticket revenue, because they did have to refund the tickets, they still did all this extra stuff, which again, kudos to the organizers.
Is the drone show is it similar to a fireworks show? Like it's in
No,
like
no. So it's actually like thousands of little drones that are all
in the sky doing
yeah,
a
in the sky, and
yeah.
they form all these shapes.
Oh wow.
Oh,
Okay.
cool.
So it's really cool. And
Oh.
then
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
So as somebody that's been to Vakken like 10 times, how was it being there with like what, half the people or?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
50,000 of the 85.
Okay, so yeah, almost half the people.
Was it a
Like,
different experience?
the lineups must have been shorter and was a little bit less squishy. Like,
Yeah.
did you notice?
Oh yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. So like things like food stands, merch lines, like usually merch lines, you're looking at 2 hours minimum. Here I was just like walking up and buying a
Whoa.
t-shirt. So stuff like
2
that.
hours.
Yeah, it's crazy. The beer lines were like significantly reduced, but it was funny because like when you're on the festival grounds, it still seemed like pretty busy because there were these massive patches of mud and nobody wanted to stand there. So like
you
had
walk
all
slower
these
because you're
checkered
like
yeah.
you're
So
trekking
everyone's
through the mud.
crowded on the dryer spot, so you're still pretty
Right.
much crowded in there, but there's all these empty spaces.
Very cool.
That's funny.
And you're going back again this year. Do you know what bands you're looking forward to seeing coming this year? Yeah, this year. Do you know what bands you're looking forward to seeing?
So they probably only announced about half.
Okay.
But yeah, there's some good stuff there. Blind Guardian is going to be there. Accept, KK's Priest, Opeth, Primal Fear, Rage, Raven, Testament, Violence, like lots of cool old bands. Scorpions, but I'm not a big Scorpions fan. They just announced Korn. That was a bit of a disappointment for me.
Weird. Yeah.
But yeah,
This sounds like a Jason festival to me.
No, I'm not into corn anymore. I had my heyday back in the mid-90s.
that seems to be a bit of a trend. Like the previous 2 festivals ago, they added Slipknot. Like they never used to have those bands, but
Yeah.
I
brings
guess
in
it
more
helps
people
sell tickets.
though.
Yeah.
Might be
brings in a
different demographic.
crowd.
Yeah.
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 I want to ask you quickly, 10 times, what's the appeal to Vakken for you? Is it just comfort at this point? You just know it so well, or?
Yeah, so comfort is a factor, but I think it's just I mean, this sounds like cheesy but it's just that metal culture there, right? Like everybody there loves heavy metal, and I know that's probably the case, at the festival you were at, but this truly is the most international festival. So like like I end up like renting my tent because you got to camp on the grounds there. So for like people who are coming from far, they actually rent tents and stuff. So like, I come in my tent and I come out and the guy next to me is from Australia. There's somebody across from me from Japan.
That's cool.
mean, literally, all South America. It's all the amazing people you meet from all over the world, and that's really the only festival I've seen that much sort of diversification of the audience. So
Nice.
that's
Yeah.
probably the biggest thing. It's just everybody there just truly loves and lives metal, and they're willing to sort of travel across the world for it. So it's that spirit
I
that
think
I haven't been able to capture anywhere else.
now, did they give you any type of like plaque for 10 years in a row? Like, geez, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like I meet people who have been to every one, right? Like all 30
Yeah.
of them, right? So it's pretty common.
Yeah.
The one thing, just on that point though, 70K Tons of Metal, they actually track every festival you go to, and you get gifts based on how many times you've been. So that's
Wow,
Wow.
that's cool.
there they do that.
What
Like
kind of gifts?
270,000 tons specifically, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like if
Yeah,
you've
cool.
been to the mall, like I mean, they're not the greatest thing, but like T-shirts and calendars,
Yeah. Yeah.
they're little gifts
Yeah,
sitting for you in your
that's
room when
cool.
you check in. So it's the thought that counts.
Yeah.
Now, do you prefer a festival on a boat or on land? Or is it just two totally different experiences that you love both?
Yeah,
Well, you're not gonna get seasick on land, but you're not gonna get
Yeah.
mud on a boat. So
Yeah.
yeah. Like I mean, they're very different, but I'll say this: as I get older, the boat's quite comfortable, right? Because you're
Yeah.
sleeping on the ground in the cold, in the rain, the mud. You don't have any of that on the
You
boat.
got a bed, you got a shower, you got your own
Exactly.
private
Air
quarters.
conditioning,
Yeah.
you got
Yeah.
heat, you got swimming pools,
Buffets.
yeah, exactly. All you can
Yeah.
eat, and you can sit at a table and eat, right? You're not sitting in the mud eating dinner.
Mhm.
So all those things make a big difference. Oh, and you guys will appreciate this. One of the best thing about 70K Tons of Metal, every band plays twice. So
Oh.
you're and
what?
they're
I didn't
usually
know that.
different sets. Yeah, yeah.
Why is that? And how does that work?
So basically, there's like 5 or 6 stages across the boat. And so, they say
That
obviously
is a massive boat. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I've never been to 70,000
yeah.
tons. So that's a huge boat, 5 or 6 stages. Like Hellfest had 5 or 6 stages.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, cruise ships now. I mean, this is probably they use a smaller cruise ship that fits like 3,500 people, but there's now cruise ships with 8,000 people. They're like
Wow.
little floating resorts, right? So it's pretty easy to do, actually. Like
Small
one of them they
cities.
put
Yeah.
right up at the top, and like people are in the swimming pool and the hot tubs watching the shows. It's pretty
Now,
cool.
is it true that the bands just hang out? That you can just run into?
Absolutely, yeah,
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah, where
last
are they gonna go?
The
Yeah.
last morning I had coffee with Zetro, the singer of Exodus. We had coffee
nice.
together for a half hour. Like, and they even do these one day you make a stop somewhere. Like, so last time it was in Jamaica, and all the bands lead these excursions. So you get on a bus with the band and you go hang out for a day.
That's so
Wow.
cool.
So like
Very cool.
it's a unique thing that you could you just can't duplicate it anywhere.
So can you choose the band you want to hang out with?
Yeah, you
Like-
can when you pick
Yeah.
them. Like there's bands, like there's like you go sightseeing with one band, or
Yeah.
another band goes to a beach, or another band does like ATV riding. So it's all
That's
different.
amazing. Yeah, very cool.
And well, since you're on the topic of the cruise and you're going in like less than a month, what bands are you most looking forward to seeing on this cruise?
Yeah, and so definitely a couple good ones here. But this is the interesting thing about 70K Tons of Metal. They're terrible at band announcement. So there's still 24 bands to be announced.
Oh, and it's soon.
Out of the 60, and that's very common, right? Sometimes they're announcing bands when I'm like, getting ready to board in 2 days. So they're
Wow.
very bad at pre-announcements. But so far for me, like some of the big ones will be Sodom, Blind Guardian, Gravedigger, Tigers of Pantang, Aborted, and Angra are some of the main ones I want to see first.
Hmm. Okay, and see, all three of you and me too. We're in Ontario, Canada here, and so we have to go to Toronto usually to see shows. So you guys have all been to a lot of shows. So Jason or Kim, what are some of your favorite shows that you've seen in Toronto this year?
Well, Kim should go.
Or
'cause
last year.
She photographs everything, so she has a better perspective on. She's been to more shows than me, that's for sure.
Well, not everything. You know, Billy did some, but yeah, I actually have a really long list of like great shows this year, and I don't know if it's because I and I said this in my individual year end list that this year was the year that really felt like things got back to normal for me, like after COVID and stuff. So there were a lot of shows, and I went to a lot of shows, and a lot of them really stuck out. Like Incantation was one. Love this band, great guys, you know, friends with them. It was just really cool to hang out, and you know, they just kill it every time I see them. Rotting Christ, I had seen Rotting Christ once before at Midgardsblad, just south of Oslo in Norway, and I remember being good, but like something about seeing them this year on this tour, they really just had like so much energy, and I, you know, I just was really into it, and really great show, and just put on an awesome performance. So that was one. Deicide and Perturbator at Beyond the Gates, and I mentioned this earlier, like for Deicide, you know, one of my favorite death metal bands of all time. And I had seen them. They were one of the first extreme metal bands that I ever saw when I was, you know, 16 years old. And somehow I didn't see them again for almost 30 years. And seeing them at Beyond the Gates, you know, you kind of like, you're like, oh, this is an old band. You don't expect too much from them. But man, like Glenn Benton, he just like, he just gives it like he did 30 years ago. You know, he's just as possessed. He's just as badass. He's spitting in on the crowd and doing his thing. And it was really like not too much different. And it was really cool. And it brought me back to like those days. Perturbator, again, like I said, just, you know, dancing in the middle of a metal show, that was quite the experience. Wolves in the Throne Room, bucket list band that I really wanted to see, got to see them. That was really cool. Suffocation, always a good time. Those guys kill it. Catatonia, that was a bucket list for me. Never saw them before. I got to see them this year. They did an amazing job. And I'm gonna say the most recent one, Cattle Decapitation with Immolation and Sanguisha Kebab, who was a new find for me. Like I learned about Sanguisha Kebab because of this show, and I looked them up, and they ended up on my year-end list because I liked them so much. But that was a great show because we got to hang out, Blake. And
Yes.
not only did we get
And
to hang
Billy.
out, but we got to get into the press pit together.
Yes, that was cool. My first concert in 4 years.
Yeah, and like you said, Jason, so Billy was there, but you know, so was Ken, and it was kind of like a metal pit hangout, which
not reunion, I guess, hangout. Yeah.
hangout, yeah, and we hadn't done that at all this year, so that's a show that, you know,
One for the
was one of my
memories.
favorites.
Well,
Yeah,
that's my favorite show of the year. Since it's only
You're only. Yeah.
Jason, do you have any shows you want to talk about that you also saw, or same
saw-
ones or whatever?
Yeah, Kim saw more than me, but we saw mainly the same ones. I would say, you know, the Suffocation Incantation show was really awesome. Getting to hang out with our friends in Incantation again. Really close to those guys. John's a really good friend, so we got to hang out with him for a good portion of the night and shoot the shit. And we hadn't seen him since Amsterdam, right, Kim? We hung out with him in Amsterdam several years ago.
Like maybe 5 years ago. Yeah.
Got drunk with him in Amsterdam, but and then we got to hang out with Suffocation, hung out on their bus for a while, talked video games and old school death metal, and that was a lot of fun hanging out with Terrence. And I've been a big fan of them since 1993, and in fact they're the reason I got into death metal and into death metal singing. So getting to hang out with those guys was super, super cool. And they put on an awesome performance with their new singer. So that was super, super, probably my favorite show. Next to that would have been the Cannibal Corpse, Blood Incantation and Gorgut show. Seen Cannibal Corpse many times. So, you know, I hung out on the patio with friends mainly during their set, caught a couple of songs. Cannibal is Cannibal. You know, if you've seen them once, you've seen them 100 times. But seeing Gorguts Luke LeMay. I actually, the last time I saw them, I opened for them with my band Blood of Christ back in the mid 90s. And I was a huge fucking fan to the point that my mom painted the Gorguts with like fabric paints on my vest back in the early 90s. That's how much of a fan I was. So a few years later, I got to play with them, open for them, and then seeing them again this year. It had been many years. Oh, actually, Kim and I saw them in Montreal several
Yeah,
years
but that
ago.
was like 7 years ago. Like
Yeah.
I feel like it's been a while since Gorguts has been on the road.
Yeah, it had been a long while. And getting to chat with Luke, the singer, main songwriter, he manned the merch booth, which was like an hour lineup, I think, all night long. But he was there at the merch booth, the only guy selling their shirts. Got to chat with him, and that was a lot of fun. But yeah, apart from that, what else was really great? Primordial.
Primordial. Yeah.
Beyond the
Funny
Gates.
way, but
That
yeah.
was fucking
Yeah,
incredible.
I think that was probably, so I've been photographing bands for 10 years, and this was the first band that I was in the pit, and I just wanted to put my camera away and watch the show. Like
Yeah.
it was a very epic, it was a good
Yeah,
show. They're so powerful.
yeah, they're really mind-blowing in the live setting. Just something about them that translates very well. And the funny thing is, the singer from Primordial, Alan, he was DJing all during the Beyond the Gates festival, the whole festival. So like if you would go to the kind of the common area between shows to have a smoke or just hang out, they would have a DJ booth, and he was DJing all night. So that was really cool that he was just hanging out with everyone, and he's a cool guy. But yeah, that's mainly it. Those were probably my favorite shows of the year.
Okay, and Billy, how about you? What good shows did you see besides the festival they were just talking about?
Yeah, so a few of the bands that Kim and Jason mentioned, I was there as well. So won't touch on those. I think Obituary was a great show this
Oh,
year.
yeah.
Yeah, that was a
Um,
good one.
Yeah, Obituary is my favorite band, and also probably my favorite live band. I've seen them easily 40 plus times
Wow.
over the years, right since their very first tour. That was great. Shout out to a band that's opening up but has a tendency to steal the show, 200 Stab Wounds.
Yeah. Kim, you
These
saw
So
guys
them,
are
right?
good.
Yeah.
yeah, these guys are
Yeah.
great live. I mean, all hell breaks loose every time. The crowd goes
It's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
yeah. It
crowd.
was funny. I just recently saw them, and they were in this small venue, and their merch table was like practically beside the mosh pit. And all they
Uh-oh.
kept saying is, "Please watch out for the merch table." And then like everyone's bouncing in and knocking it over.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
I just love
Uh,
like their persona. It's
yeah.
so serial killer,
On stage.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Like they play it up. It's very cool.
Yeah, no, they were good. Atheist and Cynic, old school technical death metal. That was great.
Was
Kelly
that in Toronto?
Schaefer. Yeah, I was in Toronto. Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Kelly
Kelly Schaefer
Schaefer.
was still.
Yeah, Kelly Schaefer of Atheist. I mean, he doesn't play guitar anymore. He just sings, but
Yeah.
he this like new band of young musicians, and I mean, they just lit up those old songs. Like it was fantastic to hear them played with Kelly and these young guys. They did a killer job. Life of Agony, a cool band I
Oh
like from New
man.
York.
Yeah.
They were here in Toronto. They did their whole River Runs Red album. So that was really cool. I know this is controversial, but Pantera didn't really know what to expect, but I thought it actually went quite well. I enjoyed the show and very respectful.
I would have went to that.
Now, Billy, had you seen Pantera back in the day?
Yeah,
Like, did you
I
have any?
saw them. Yeah, I mean, not their power metal albums, but from
No. But like Vulgar Display or whatever. How would you compare this current?
I would say, the songs were reproduced exactly as they were in the past. I mean,
Right.
basically having, the Anthrax drummer, and, the Aussie guitar player there, they can play those parts. And so, it was really cool. They had all the screens, and, they were constantly showing you Dimebag and Vinny on the screen. So very respectful for what it was, but the songs had lots of energy. I mean, they sold out the what do they call it here? The Budweiser stage. So like
Wow. Yeah.
15,000 people, and now they're coming back and playing the ACC, the hockey arena. So it's really doing well, and it was cool to see, like, all the old guys like me were there, but all the young kids were there as well.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so I'd say half the audience were seeing them for the first time. So I think the Abbott brothers would appreciate like a new audience finding their music.
Yeah. It's kind of beautiful when you think of it that way, you know?
Yeah, no. So
Yeah.
I thought it was well. Halloween was a great show. Saw them twice this year. Once at Wacken, once in Toronto, and a really cool Toronto show. It's such an interesting lineup, but I loved it. Carcass, Sacred Reich, Municipal Waste, and Creeping Death. So two thrash bands, two death metal bands at the Phoenix. That was a killer show. Also, Vader was another good show I saw this year.
Nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
lots of great music, and as Kim said, like, it definitely feels like, touring's back, and, like from what I hear, bands can't even get buses or anything these days to do their tours because everybody's touring.
Oh, on
Uh,
that note, Billy, like
yeah,
one thing I did notice about this year was, there was a lot of shows, but there was a lot of repeat bands.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
like I
we saw
saw Cattle
Immolation
twice, saw Immolation like 3 times
3
in just
times.
over a
Yeah.
year. You
Yep.
know, like Cannibal a couple times. Like they're. It seems like I think those struggles are still happening. Like getting on tour is very expensive now for bands. So
yeah.
maybe only bands on bigger labels or whatever can really get out there. But yeah, there was definitely a lot of shows, but a lot of shows of the same thing. So hopefully that
Yeah.
changes in
Good point.
2024.
Yep.
Okay. I think we've done enough talking about live shows from 2023. The last few weeks on our website, our writers have all been given their top 15 albums of the year. And so we added all that up, and now we have the Metal Pit's top 15 of the year. So we're going to do that now. And we're going to start at number 15. And I'm going to let whoever knows the album or the band the best can start talking about it, if it's on your list or whatever. So even though I beg to differ on this one, but number 15 is Prong with their 13th studio album, State of Emergency. Who wants to talk about that one?
I have to say, like, Beg to Differ is one of my favorite fucking albums of all time. Prove You Wrong, another one that their follow-up, one of my favorites. I didn't like really anything after Prove. I mean, there was that Snap Your Head, Snap Your Neck. They lost me there when they got a little new metal-y. They just lost me. I think that was probably the late 90s, early 2000s. And then everything since, could not get into. And then this album came out and I'm like, holy shit, this is a fucking return to the Prong I know, the first two albums. Well, I guess there was Beg to Differ was their second album. There was an album before that, but I got into them with Beg to Differ. So anyways, this new album kind of harkens back to that early Prong sound. And I just love the album. I wasn't expecting to. I put it on and I was like expecting to be disappointed again, as I have with every album for the last 20 years. And it blew me away. And it's one that I spin probably a couple of times a week at work while I'm working. So love that album.
And
Yeah,
Billy, you also like this one too, right?
Yeah, no, that's interesting, Jason, because literally every single point you just made is the exact point I would have made. My favorite albums by them, the early ones, Lost Interest. This was my biggest surprise of 2023. And personally, I think it just might be as good as Beg to Differ,
Yeah.
which is also where I discovered them. But yeah, and then you throw in a cool Rush cover of Working Man
Yes.
on top of it all, and that's pretty cool. So yeah, this was kind of mid on my list. yes, again, my biggest surprise of the year for sure. Great album.
Absolutely. Biggest surprise for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kim, do you want to add anything to that or not?
No, no, I can't because I didn't listen to it.
Okay. So our number 14th album is by the band Tailgunner, and this is actually their debut full-length album. It was released in July. The album is called Guns for Hire. Did anybody have this on their list of you three? I don't
Not
think
me.
so. Does anybody know this
Nope.
band at all much?
Yeah, I listened. It definitely wasn't on my top 15, but that's just a matter of taste. It's a band from the UK. It's following this new wave of traditional heavy metal bands. So very much play old school metal, very sort of 80s inspired. Not reinventing the wheel in any way, but they execute very well. It's a fun album. You can enjoy it. Again, not on my top 15, but I can see why some of the other writers probably had it on there. It's just well done.
Okay, and the number 13th is from the Canadian death metal band Tomb Mold, and it is their fourth studio album, I think. Anyway, it's called The Enduring Spirit. And any of you like this one? Did anybody have this on the list?
I'm not a Tomb Mold fan at all. I tried to get into the album. I've tried to get into every album. I find that, from my perspective, I like my death metal old school. And this is just a little too trying to be
Paint
a
by
little
numbers?
too, no, not paint by numbers, but a little too inclusive, I guess would be the word. I'm not against inclusivity at all, but it kind of pulls in a bunch of stuff that in my estimation doesn't belong in death metal. I know Ken, it was one of his favorite albums, and Ken's an old school guy, so there's a many different opinions on what these guys are doing. So yeah, I think because there are so many different influences, it loses focus in my opinion. And I much prefer my death metal to be kind of one track. I like it to be focused, and these guys, they don't really have a focus. It's kind of just an amalgamation, a hodgepodge, a smorgasbord of many different things that they throw into this kind of death metal blender. And I don't know. I mean, I guess if you're a little more open-minded than me, you might love it, but I'm not so open-minded with my musical
Was it
taste.
on your list, Billy?
No, I actually owned their previous album, and to be honest, it's just nothing that drags me back to play it. So never even picked this up. Like I'm seeing it on like not just Ken, but like it's top
I
three
think Jim
album.
had it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you
So it's-
find what I said though, Billy? Like it's just a little too many things going on, or what?
Yeah, no, I think that's fair, Jason. I mean, the one interesting thing, so I do want to, I'll probably stream it and hear it because people who like the old stuff are complaining that this is like a shift in style and sound. I'm curious to see what it sounded like. They were shifting into more technical metal, but I don't know if that's true. That's what I was reading.
Yeah,
It was, I did give it a listen, and it's very tech death for sure. Yeah, but I didn't listen to anything previous, so.
Yeah, and like Kim said, it's very technical, but their early stuff is a bit more palatable if you're into like just kind of old school death metal. It sounds like Incantation. It has that cavernous kind of sound like Incantation has, but this one is definitely more technical and out there.
Okay, and a number 12 album is Black Braid, album title 2. And Jason and Kim, I know you know this band better than Billy does, so which one of you want to say stuff about this album?
Yeah,
I think
I'm gonna say. Oh, go ahead, Kim.
I was just gonna say when it came out, I think I played it on repeat for about 3 months, but it didn't make my list.
Yeah, maybe I'll add to that. I got into this band because of Kim. She put it on repeat for 3 months, and I was like, this fucking album it really caught me. It's a really great album. It's really catchy. But then there was some shit that happened with the band that changed my opinion. Some controversy. They played in Norway at a festival we've been at too, Midgardsblot, which is a very inclusive festival. with bands from every genre, every race, every walk of life. Very inclusive, very welcoming.
Yeah, it's kind of like the theme of Midgard's Blood, I think, is,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
It's
yeah.
like we welcome everyone. And Black Braid, who blew up over the past,
Allegedly.
yeah, they blew up over the last year, and became a really, really, like, everyone was like, Black Braid, Black Braid, Black Braid. So they invited them to the festival, and they happened to be Native American. Um, the main songwriter, John Krieger, um, and there was an issue where one of the band members got drunk and was being kind of a, I guess, lack of a better word, douchebag in front of the stage. And the security asked him, "Can you take it backstage? We have an area for you guys in the backstage. You can go
I think he
there,
fell
get
asleep.
drunk."
I think he fell.
Yeah,
I
he
think
fell asleep, and
he
they
was
didn't.
sleeping.
Yeah,
And so Norway has pretty, like, it's not like North America. They have pretty strict, laws about this stuff, like being drunk in public or passing out or things like that. So
yeah,
it's much more reserved there.
yeah.
Like for example, like, being at Beyond the Gates this year, you don't see the extreme stage diving and mosh pits and stuff. Like, yeah, they dabble in it a little bit, but it's not like you see around here. Like
No, the security kind of really puts a stop to that.
it's
And
quite jarring, actually, when
yeah,
you go there and you're like, what's wrong with these people? They're not moving. Like, are they enjoying it? Like, what's going on? But then you kind of realize, you go there often enough that this is just
the norm. Yeah,
the culture.
yeah.
So, and they do have these very strict laws. So security guy asks band member, like, we have beds for you backstage, can you please, like, go to bed, basically.
And then he ended up spitting in the face of the security guard, and a big thing happened. And then the band called it. They played the race card and said,
Well, they got kicked out, actually.
yeah,
They,
yeah,
well, they eventually they got asked to leave. Like, eventually
yeah.
it was like, you need to leave. Like, you're being very disrespectful.
And then they
You're
went on,
spitting
yeah,
on people and stuff.
then they
So
went on social media and used the race card and blamed Midgard's Blot for being racist against Native Americans. And it was just something we didn't expect from this band. And you know what? I don't like to mix politics with my metal, but there's certain lines. If you cross those lines, I don't know if I can be a supporter anymore. I still love the music, but I'm sure you agree, Kim, the music is still great, but there's just some things that can change
you
your
know what,
perspective.
though? Like, everybody fucks up, everybody makes mistakes, and I just, I hope they learned from it.
Yeah,
And
yeah, they're pretty young, and I think you're right. I
yeah,
hope they learned from it.
yeah. I mean, he's a really good songwriter.
Yeah,
So he definitely has a lot of talent. So
yeah, yeah. So that's why I
Okay,
didn't
then
make the
we'll-
year-end list, but
Yes. I was surprised actually when I got your list and it wasn't on.
yeah.
But of course, I know why too. Okay, then we go to number 11 and we got Incantation with Unholy Deification.
Wait, don't you mean defecation?
Did I say that right?
meant defecation.
Unholy defecation would have been like the best.
Whatever.
possible.
Unholy something. Anyway.
I went
Now,
into
I think all
public-
three of you are fans of this band, aren't you? So who wants to go first? Billy, you want to go first? Do you like them? I forget.
Actually, I just picked this one up, believe it or not,
Okay.
like 2 weeks ago. So I've only spun it twice. So I'm probably I like what I'm hearing, but just too early. I can't weigh in yet.
Okay, Kim or Jason?
Well, Incantation, one of my favorite bands, I think. They're dark, they're blasphemous, they're brutal, they're heavy, they're consistent, and
Great word,
um,
consistent. Yeah, they're
yeah,
consistent.
they really are, for sure. And
Yeah.
they're great people. So maybe I'm a little biased because, just
They're your friends.
yeah. This album was great. It was very doomy, which I dig it. I was into that. and of course is very evil. These are things that I hold in high regards. Very extreme. I one thing I'll say about it is that like I wish the production was like a little bit. I don't know what the word is, but I don't want to say fuller because it's not like it was hollow, but it's just like it just wasn't loud enough or low enough or something. But
It's
the
funny you
album's
mention that
great.
though, because the last album, that's kind of what they went for, a fuller sound, more low end. And then John was like, this sounds too clean. This
Yeah,
sounds
but
too
and I agree
polished.
with you. I agree with you, but but the last album was a little too, like you said, too polished. Like it was too clean. But
Yeah.
I mean, I'll put like Dying Fetus album on from this year, and it's so fucking loud. It's so
Yeah, it's
fucking
got a
low.
punch. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but if you go straight from that to like Incan's new album, which is a really, really great album and great songwriting and great solos and great riffs and good hooks and stuff. But it's the change in the sound,
Yeah.
really is it's hard to not notice.
Yep. Yep. I would agree. It made my year-end list, and I love the album. Um, I think it's one of my favorite Incantation albums in a long time. I wish there was more punch, like Kim was saying, and maybe a little bit more bottom end. But as she mentioned, the solos are awesome. They have the Luke, who is the guitar player now, full-time guitar player. He was only a touring musician over the last, I guess, 10 years or so, but has been welcomed into the band full-time and as a
Great
rhythm
addition.
and lead player. Yeah, and he is really, really proven his abilities and really kind of adds a lot to Incantation sound. So I'm really excited for the next album. That was
And they're
was
like one
cool.
of those bands, if you go see them live, like they really interact with the crowd,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
yeah, like you feel
yeah. You
like
saw them, Billy, right? They were really cool with the crowd, and
Yeah, no, unfortunately, that Incantation Suffocation show, I
you didn't
had
make it.
tickets, but the previous week I went to like a show and got super sick. So I,
Oh,
it,
right. Yeah,
oh
that's
oh
right.
yeah,
Shit, I forgot.
I
yeah,
Yeah,
remember
yeah,
that
yeah,
actually,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
but
yeah.
Incantation they're playing Wacken, so I'll see them later next year.
Cool. Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, at number 10, we got another black metal band. So I know this will be a Jason and Kim discussion. And I think the band's name is Shooter. And the
Got it.
album title is Helviger.
Yep.
Am I close?
You're right. I
Jason,
would
you want to speak about it?
sure. It was my #1 album of the year. So Shooter's been a black metal band that has existed from Norway for many, many years. They're one of the old guards. This album, I can't remember how many. I think they're like 7 or 8 albums in. Uh, I don't know. I think it's one of the best sounding black metal albums of all time. And I mean that in a way that it's not too raw and it's not too polished. It's just
Mhm.
kind of perfect balance of like both raw and a bit more polished sounding, and it really comes across really, really, really well. They really surprised me with this one. They did a lot of different things that they haven't done. There's a lot more melody with some of the songs, lot more thought put into the songs as part of the songwriting. Um, they haven't compromised their aggressiveness and viciousness at all. It's a super, super aggressive
Yeah,
album.
I have to
Um,
agree with that. Like even though they introduce like some melody and stuff like that, like it's consistently evil, and it's like
yeah, yeah,
at any point in the album you're just like, yeah, this is you know
yeah.
true Norwegian black metal,
And
like
I
truth
would
score through the whole thing.
absolutely, and I would say to people who aren't into black metal so much, give this album a spin because I think it kind of bridges a gap between not only black metal but just extreme metal in general. Like it's just a really awesome extreme metal album. If you just were to wipe out what you know of black metal, if you don't like black metal or not into it, and just listen to the album as an extreme album, you could probably appreciate many things about the album. Like it's just, I think it's beyond black metal in a way. It's not technical, but there's enough technicality to it that it kind of transcends, I guess, what most people know of black metal. Yeah, just a super, super awesome
And
album.
Suitor is one of those bands that have like always like safeguarded the original, values of black metal.
Black
Like
metal.
they're
Yeah.
yeah, they're like, we don't sell. I mean, I'm not. I don't have an opinion on what selling out in black metal is because I like a lot of black
Gear,
metal.
Cradle of Filth.
Sure, but
Yeah.
some of my favorite black metal bands are bands that have like evolved,
Yeah,
over
that's a
time
good
and
point.
become
Yeah.
more progressive or more experimental, or you
Like
listen to their
Enslaved, right?
yeah, you listen to their, like, look at Ulver.
Yep.
You listen to their modern stuff and you wouldn't even recognize them from, their first albums.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
that I don't discriminate against that, but when you want something or a band that's just, staying true to, the original persona, Suitor is one of those bands.
It's funny you say that because like even though Shooter safeguards or they're the gatekeepers of black metal, I don't consider this album a black metal album. Like I don't know what it is about it. Like something about it just I think is I think because they've been around so long and the songwriting is so not diverse but different from what they've done. I just think of it as a really great extreme metal album. I don't like to I interviewed what's his name again, Kim?
Nog?
What is it?
Nog?
Nog. Yeah, the singer and guitar player for Suitor not recently, several months ago for the Metal Pit, and yeah, he was very like, we are black metal, black metal, black metal, black metal, black metal. And I didn't want to like fight him on that, but to me, it's just a really good extreme metal album.
I guess I should give it a try then. Like, I'm not a big black metal fan, but based on what you're saying, this might be one for me to try.
Yeah.
Well, Billy, I mean, to be fair, you're gonna put it on and your first impressions are gonna be like, wow, this is extreme black metal, but you have to like listen through it.
Yeah. It's a bit deeper.
Okay, number 9, we got Swedish metal band Katatonia with Sky Void of Stars. Kim, you want to talk about this one? Because I know you like them for sure.
Yeah. So Katatonia is one of those bands that I think people either they get it or they don't. You love them or you hate them. They're very powerful in their lyrics and but it's for people who like to get deep, I think.
Or people that like birds. They sing a lot about birds.
Yeah, they got a thing with birds. But yeah, I'm one of those people that gets this band and I really love them, and I get into these moods where I could just listen to Katatonia for days, and songs that I like on every album. But this album really spoke to me in a lot of ways. I also think that Katatonia is really like coming into themselves. If you listen to, they also were a band that started with death metal vocals and stuff, and and then they went through a period where they kind of went into clean singing, but it was sort of a little bit awkward because he hadn't found his voice, but interestingly, I love those albums. Like I love the sort of awkward, out of tune vocals on some of those like mid albums, and I would never change them. But I think that the passion that comes from this band, it really feels like you're staring into their souls when you listen to their music. And this current album, a lot of good lyrical content, like Opaline, however you say it, like a song about like realizing you're getting old and shit like that. Not saying that I'm old, but maybe I am. And but I think they're at a point right now where they've really found their identity, and they just make these really, really great songs.
Yeah. Billy, do you like, I don't know I know they're not on your list. Do you listen to Katatonia?
Yeah, no, I'm not the biggest fan, but I do enjoy this album. I think deep is the right way to describe this band. They are pretty deep and thoughtful. But for me, just I find the songwriting like very dynamic. They could be heavy, but they have these nice soft passages. The contrast,
Yeah.
well, like it really, it's really sticking with me, and the choruses are so memorable. With every listen, I'm like getting more and more addicted
Absolutely.
to it. So it didn't make my list, but the more I listen to it, the more I'm enjoying it. So maybe I picked this one up a bit late, but it's really starting to grow on me.
Okay, and a number 8 album is the death metal band Suffocation with their 9th studio album, Suffocation. Sorry, I think I said that wrong. And I'm going to let somebody else say the name of the album title because I already forget how to say it.
Come on, give it a shot.
Hymns from the yada, yada, yada. That's what I'm saying.
Apocrypha.
Apocrypha. There you go.
Okay, who's talking about it?
Well, I'm just gonna say this is a badass album. But I'm pretty sure Jason has a lot more to say about it. He reviewed it, so.
Well, I've been a Suffocation fan. I think I spoke on this earlier, since '93. And I was worried that this album was the first studio album without Frank Mullen, their original longtime singer. And in his place is the new singer Ricky Myers, who's actually been the touring vocalist for many years now. When Frank couldn't get out on tour, so he's been with the band for a while, but he's now the permanent full-time vocalist. And I was worried that, what are we going to expect from Ricky? Like, this is not Frank. Frank's the tank, he's the man. And Ricky really blew me away. And you have the awesome duo of Terrence Hobbs and Charlie Arago, who's the other guitarist. Charlie's a phenomenal guitar player. Charlie actually started writing some songs on this new album for the first time, which is really, really cool. I love Charlie. We got to hang out with him, and he was a really, really cool guy, eh, Kim?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Derek.
And Derek Boyer, the bass player, just dropped some
One
of
of
the
my favorite
heaviest-
people to photograph.
Yeah, he throws that bass on the ground, and
Yeah.
he's fucking awesome. And yeah, it's just a super awesome album. Really solid. Suffocation album, probably one of my favorite albums from them in over 10 years. So the production is perfect on this album. It's heavy. The last album was a little too, I don't know, digitally processed sounding, but this album just has a real awesome low end to it, just like the early Suffocation stuff. So yeah, one of my favorite albums of the year.
Okay, don't worry, Billy. Soon we're getting to some albums that you have on your list too.
Yeah.
Anyway, number 7, another one not on Billy's list, but probably on Jim and Jason's list, is Enslaved, is the 7th album. Heimdall, the 16th studio album. And this band happens to be from Norway, which is probably why you guys love them so much.
Kim, you go. You love this album more than I do, for sure.
Oh, I do love this album. I mean, I love all Enslaved albums, but I feel like I'm growing with Enslaved, like they're growing and they're changing and they're very avant-garde.
They're like the
But at the
Rush
same-
of black metal, right?
They are. But something I always thought about Enslaved is that as they were getting more experimental and more progressive and stuff, but they always keep their black metal in their songs, and the transition between the black metal and the progressiveness has always felt really awkward to me. And that's something that like I identify with Enslaved as these like awkward changeovers and stuff, but they, but it's cool and I dig it. And they have two phases in a way. They hang on to their roots, but they also grow and explore. And one thing I think that is cool about this album is the drummer is now the clean vocalist, and he does a really, really great job.
He's one
Um,
of my favorite clean vocalists of all time. I think he's fucking incredible.
yeah, and every time I listen to this band, it takes me to Norway in my mind.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, they just there's something about like it really I don't know.
Something
But
tied to
yeah,
that country. Like you
yeah,
just feel, right?
yeah. And they
Yeah,
put on a great show, a really,
yeah.
really great show. Yeah. Yeah, and there's a lot of history in this band and um a lot of very talented people.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly with Kim. I've been an Enslaved fan since the mid 90s. I saw them in London, Ontario in 1995 when they were just kids at a small club, and been a fan ever since. But like Kim said, they're now just a progressive metal band. Like similar to Suitor, I don't really see them as black metal, but like Kim said, they've never lost. They even with every album, they get more progressive. Um, like Rush. So if you're a progressive metal fan, you'd probably love Enslaved. But they do still hold on to the black metal roots within the song structures. So you can hear, their roots, but you get this incredible progressiveness from the band that's just unlike anything else in metal, I would say. They really explore different things like Voivod and Rush and some of their
Hmm.
favorite bands. We interviewed them at
Ween,
Bergen. Ween.
which we recently discovered through
Yeah,
talking to Grudel.
yeah. Talking to the singer, we interviewed him at Beyond the Gates. He talked about Voivod being his favorite band and Rush being one of his favorite bands. And yeah, one of the few black metal bands that is not afraid to explore and
Mhm.
not afraid to become, to become masters of their instruments and just continue learning. So yeah, Billy, I would wholeheartedly check out Heimdall if you haven't, because I know you're a progressive metal fan, and
Yeah.
you might actually find something worthwhile in that album.
Yeah, I was going to ask you because I have what is it, Utgard, I think, from
Utgard,
their
yeah,
last album.
yeah,
I loved it actually.
yeah, yeah,
Are we
Nice.
talking similar style?
yeah. Maybe a bit more progressive, eh, Kim? I would
Like
say than
yeah, they
Utgard.
take it further. They take it
Okay,
further, I think, with this one. Yeah.
Yeah,
gonna have to check it out.
yeah.
Okay, our number 6. This is on Billy's list, so we can let Billy talk first about this one. This is this is Hell Ripper with their album Warlocks, Grim, and Withered Hags.
Yeah,
And
so
this is their third studio album. Billy, what do you like, Hell Ripper?
yeah, no, Hellripper is a great band. It's I guess they're primarily classified as black and thrash metal, definitely thrash metal. The vocals probably hint at black metal to a small degree, but this is an interesting project because it really is a one-man show. James McBain, he's a young guy from Scotland, and he does everything, right? He has a touring band, but he's the only studio musician. He does everything. So great album, best thrash album, them and Overkill this year, in my opinion. Songwriting's getting more mature. The songs are creeping up in length this time. For me, the best part's always the guitar riffs and the solos, like James, fantastic. And it's the type of music, again, you listen to it more and more, and you really see how brilliant the songwriting is. Everything is in a place for a reason. Like he's a young guy, but he's very smart. He knows his metal, and so it's the type of band that can really appeal to I think all genres of metal. So yeah, if you haven't heard of them, definitely check them out. They're a great band from or great one guy from Scotland. Really cool stuff.
Oh, is it a one-man band?
Yeah, yeah. Well, he has a touring band, but he plays everything
Yeah.
in the
Oh,
studio.
cool, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, they're
Okay, and our number
outside of my scope, so I don't really have much to say about them. I did listen to them the other day, and definitely interesting and something I should definitely check out a bit more.
Okay, our number 5 album, I think, is high on all your lists, if I remember correctly, and that is Dying Fetus with their 9th studio album, Make Them Beg for Death. Who wants to go first?
Well, they were my number one.
Okay, then you should go first.
Yeah, yeah, Dying Fetus never disappoints me. I think the production on this was perfect. Songwriting was perfect. This is an album that, like, I don't know what to listen to. I throw on Dying Fetus, I'm happy in like 2 seconds. This is my go-to music. So maybe a little biased, but yeah, always a little controversial. Definitely always brutal. The vocal style that Dying Fetus has, like that really like guttural shit. Like I love that. So, I mean, really, this band can do no wrong for me. And I think probably my most listened to album this year. Absolutely.
And Billy, you want to talk about it too?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great album. It's I had it, I think, fourth, and as I continue to listen to it, if I redid my list, it'd probably be up to third. I think Kim's dead on. It's brutal, but it's interesting because the songs are still catchy, and they have these massive hooks to dig into. So it just makes the song so memorable. I always tell people, like, personally, I think this is a great sort of intro band to death metal, and this album in particular, it just there's something to grab onto in all these songs, and also like very, I don't know if it's a word, moshy, but they have these parts that just make you want. If I was 20 years younger, I'd be in the mosh pit hearing these songs live.
Yeah.
I call those pit riffs. Definitely pit riffs.
Pit riff, whatever, yeah, mosh riffs, or they're a fantastic album, great stuff.
And Jason, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, just a solid album. A band that never disappoints from album to album. Just legendary.
They make you bang your head
They
involuntarily.
make you bang your head. Yep, seeing them live is fucking incredible. If you ever want to see a pit just go absolutely insane, just go to a Dying Fetus show and wait for one of their incredible breakdowns, and there you go. That's just the epitome of a pit. Yeah, and loved the album. It was cool.
Okay, and a number fourth album is from Cannibal Corpse with Chaos Horrific. And Jason, you want to go first on Cannibal Corpse?
Yeah, I mean, Cannibal Corpse for many, many years. I am not so much a fan of the Corpse Grinder era of Cannibal. I got to be honest, I just not. So they kind of lose me. I don't really get into their albums.
I have a question for
Chris
you.
Barnes. Yep.
Yeah, but would you like Chris Barnes back in the band?
If
current Chris Barnes.
Not current Chris Barnes, because I'm not a 6 Feet Under fan at all. I think he sounds like a fucking idiot. I don't know what's wrong with his vocals these days, but
Corpse Grinder's a cool dude. I mean,
yeah, I had nothing against the band or Corpse Grinder at all. It just, I prefer the Chris Barnes era stuff, and I've never really gotten. I find that the band is just too one-dimensional now. But if you go back to like albums like Butchered at Birth, Tomb of the Mutilated, The Bleeding, there's just this dynamism to those albums that they haven't replicated ever since. I think now they just focus, they're too technical, and it loses that Cannibal Corpse brutality that I loved so much back in the day. Like, I don't know, like, yeah, great, they're all incredible musicians, and like every album is a solid album, no doubt, but to me it just sounds too samey from every album. I think Corpse Grinder album is just a bit too samey. Something happened.
I think Cannibal is a band that like suffers from, they're one of those bands that have been around for a long time. So they put out a lot of albums, and obviously they've changed over time, and they have a lot of fans who were into them in the beginning, and then they have a lot of fans who got into them later in their catalog. And so, it's difficult to please everybody. And Cannibal actually didn't make my list, but I was listening to it earlier today, again, this album, and if I were to remake my list, like Billy said earlier, I would probably put them on it, because I don't know, something about this spin. I don't know, maybe I just get it now, but it's got some catchy riffs. It's got some good hooks. It was,
I prefer the riffs that slow down, like when they slow things down and there's a bit of a groove. that reminds me of the old Cannibal Corpse when they had a bit of a groove and like those riffs just had some balls behind them. Now it's just like all the time, and like I can't slow it down, Cannibal Corpse, and I'll be back. There you go.
And Billy, do you want to add anything to that one?
Yeah, I enjoyed it actually. I had it sort of middle of my list. I think Jason's right in the set. For me, the early albums happen to be my favorite albums, but I still enjoy the Corpse Grinder albums, and I'd say particularly the last two, like Eric Rutan's fitting in quite nicely. I think he's reinvigorated the band a little, and so and some of the technicality and that have that surgical sort of technical precision. I like that, so it kind of works for me. And I also enjoy Corpse Grinder as a singer, especially live. I think he's quite the character live.
He's fun. Yeah, he's fun dude.
Yeah. So I enjoyed it, and I still enjoy the band, and I still really enjoy the live set to this day.
Well,
That's
my
amazing
favorite
how
Cannibal
long they've
Corpse
been going.
singer is Jim Carrey, of course.
Oh shit.
Anyway, okay.
Can't argue with that.
Anyway, okay. Number 3, we got Primordial with How It Ends, their 10th studio album. Who wants to go? Kim, you want to talk this one first?
Primordial. What can I say? I always thought that the name of the band was like just so perfect for them because they really truly are a primordial feeling band. Like these guys go back to the roots. Like they
Celtic
they're
roots, right?
alive in the wrong time, very historical, and they really have a way of like bringing out that tribal feeling in you, like the stuff that's deep down in your DNA that we kind of forget about in today's society. And like they take you places, they take you back, and this album was really, really great. Some of my most played songs of the year. Absolutely love it. Absolutely love seeing them live this year. They deserve that spot.
And Jason, do you want to add anything?
I just agree with Kim. I think that they bring out something deep down inside that is missing, and they really kind of capture that. And every song, there's an attachment to it that I don't necessarily get from other metal bands. Like there's just something intrinsic to their music, to the spirit of
Very
both
powerful.
metal and just being alive. And historically, they really bridge that gap, I think, between there's not a lot of bands who can sing about the themes they do and really put that person in that moment, but Primordial is one of those bands. And the new album, they do it perfectly in spades, so love them.
No, I read that it might be the last. Have you heard anything about that?
No.
I just read that on
No.
somebody's
Without
reviews.
reading.
Thought that it might be their last album, but I don't know anything about them. So
Fuck that
just-
person.
Well, I don't know what they look like. I can't
Start
tell you.
rumors and shit.
Billy, do you listen to them? Did you want to add anything to that one?
No, don't know them, but I have it flagged. They're playing Wacken this year, so I'll definitely check them out.
Okay, well, the top 2 albums are actually, they match Billy's top 2. So number 2 is an old thrash metal band with their 20th album, and that is Overkill and their album Scorch. So we'll let Billy start on this one.
Yeah, no, great album. And it's so interesting, right? Like I think back, this, Overkill and our number 1 band, I won't give it away, but stuff that I listened to, in the late 80s, early 90s and grew up with, if you asked me back then, would these bands still be putting out killer albums in the 2020s? I'd be like, I'm just amazed at all that so many of these old bands are still going strong, still very relevant, and they still have a lot to teach the young and up and coming band. So I think it's a fantastic album. It's heavy and fast as the old stuff, but with better songwriting. Right, they've gotten more mature. Lots of surprises, strong hooks, use of melody, even some like interesting sing-along choruses here. Just all very memorable. The last 3 or 4, I mean, every album that Overkill has put out over the last decade has been excellent and just on a roll. And Bobby still sounds great. So yeah, a big fan of this album, my thrash album of the year for sure.
And Kim, I know they're on your list too. Do you want to add to it?
Yeah, I mean, it's Overkill. This is the band I put on when I'm on my way to a show and I want to get pumped up, like consistently full of energy, and this album, it just is on par with anything else they've released, and yeah, I'm not surprised they're number 2.
And Jason, do you want to add to this Overkill?
Yeah, I think it's a consistent album. I prefer, Years of Decay and stuff before that. Anything post Years of Horoscope was okay. But I don't know. I feel like they're paint by numbers a lot with a lot of their newer albums, but it's still really, really good quality thrash. Like it's unbelievable how long they've been going, like Billy said. But I'll still prefer to put on something like Years of Decay or Under the Influence or something like that. But still an awesome band. Unbelievable. They've been going this long.
They formed in 1980, so I think that's the oldest group on our list.
Yeah.
And our number one album is
not that
they're still making lists, so
yeah,
that's something.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Still making top 5.
And our first is Obituary with Dying of Everything. And I'll let Jason start this one off.
I have to say that I'm really surprised, not that it's a bad album at all, because I love the album, but I'm really, really, really surprised at how many year-end lists this is making, and closer to the top, if not number 1. For a band that's been around as long as they have. I'm going to do a plug here. I got this for Christmas. I don't know if you can see it, but it's the Scott Burns Sessions.
Oh yeah.
A Life in Death Metal, 1987 to 1997. So he produced all the early. He was the engineer and producer of all the early death metal albums, like Obituary's first album, their first demo, in fact. And reading all the stories in this about these early recordings, it's incredible to me that the band really hasn't changed at all in the past 35 years. And
that checks out. Like, they really haven't.
No, like that groove is
they
still
really
there,
haven't.
that heaviness,
Yeah.
like John Tardy,
Yeah.
his vocals,
Yeah.
Donald Tardy, just incredible behind the drums. Sure, there's been different guitars come and go, but I mean, super consistent band, and one of the bands that I think keeps death metal relevant to the younger generations. Like, if you go to an Obituary show, you'll see that not only are the old school like us there, but mainly it's just the young kids that are there. So they're keeping death metal alive. And I'll tell you, I used to have dreams when I was young of little dreams. Every night I would have a dream. I've loved them so much that I was hanging out with Obituary. We'd go to McDonald's and run into all my friends. My friends would be like, "Oh my God, you're hanging out with Obituary." I still feel that way today about the band. Like, they're just like one of those bands that obviously they're not Metallica, but to me, in the death metal sense, they're Metallica. They're the Metallica of death metal.
Yeah,
And
I feel that checks out. And
yeah.
this album is just so catchy and so
Fucking
groovy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
Billy, you
like-
had them as your number 1. So what would you like to add?
Yeah, no, I mean, so maybe I'm biased, but like Obituary's been my favorite band since Slowly We Rot came out. So they'd have to really mess up for me to not like them. But I agree, right? I mean, they know what they do well, and that's what they deliver. Right? We're not, we talked about some of the bands like Enslaved that greatly evolved through time, but Obituaries, largely delivering the same stuff. But even this album, like I did think there were, it was a little more thrashy at times, or a little bit of doom mixed in there. So they try to like tweak it a little bit, but yeah, it's that heavy, groove obituary sound that keeps me coming back. And John Tardy, I mean, he sounds as good as he did on Slowly We Rot, right? Like going
Oh,
all
yeah.
the way back to that. I mean, how does he keep singing like that all these years
Mm.
later? And this is a heavy touring band. I mean, these guys, like when I lived in the US, they were hitting, which is why I've seen them so many times. Like they were on tours like 3 or 4 times every year,
Yeah.
hitting Philadelphia. So they're just relentless. And so, I mean, in a way, that's probably just gotten them so tight in their playing that, they're fantastic still live. So,
One
number
thing I
one for
learned
me.
about John Tardy is from this book is that back in the day, like Slowly We Rot and Complete, he wasn't saying anything. His
No,
lyrics were just
yeah,
nonsense.
Bones.
He was just
Yeah,
making sounds.
yeah,
Now, this new album, you can actually hear he's writing lyrics and
yeah,
literally has something to say these days.
yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, definitely consistent band, but whenever I listen to that track, The Wrong Time, I'm like,
Yeah.
what genre is this anyways?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what is it? But I don't care because it's so good and I love it.
So groovy.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but I guess still experimental in a way, like they kind of don't give a fuck, and I love it.
Yeah.
And Donald just sort of, goes against the death metal stereotype, right? He rescues cats. And so
Yeah,
they're
Metal
just like,
Meowlicia
yeah, yeah,
or
like
whatever
they're
it's
just
called.
nice guys as well, right? So it's cool stuff.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's our top 15 list of 2023. Is there any albums anybody wanted to talk about that didn't make the list that are important to you?
What about Metallica? Anyone have any?
Oh, are we gonna go there?
I didn't know we were starting our disappointment section.
Well, I guess we could. Let's talk about Metallica disappointment. I don't know. Didn't listen to the album enough. But Blake, do you have? Or
Well,
sorry,
I think
I know
well,
from my perspective, it right away, like I gave it a shot. It's an hour and 20 minutes. Like no band should be putting out an hour and 20 minutes. It's
that's
just,
ridiculous.
and sure, I love the first 4 albums, and nothing's been as good as the first 4 albums. But it's not about that, right? Like it's the same thing happening with Iron Maiden, right? These bands have become so big that nobody's sort of giving advice in the studio, right? These songs need to be cut back, reduced. There's filler in there. Take that hour and 20 minutes and take all the best ideas and put out a 45-minute album or a 50-minute album. Like it just,
Yeah.
there's some great ideas in there. I like some of the songs, like 3 or 4 of the songs, but just too much filler on there, and just over bloated. And they need a producer who can stand up to the band and cut this stuff back.
Bring Fleming back.
yeah.
Jeez. Right? Yeah.
sorry, keep talking.
Well, were there any? I couldn't really think of anything that like truly disappointed me this year, so I can't contribute.
Okay, so I was going to say I do like the song Lux Eterna, though. I love that
Oh,
song.
that song's awesome.
I know it's only 3 minutes, but I wish there was more songs like that on it. But
Yeah, like, do you remember when that single came out and how hopeful you were for the new Metallica album?
well, I don't know if I listened. Did I listen to the single?
And then you were
Because usually I wait for
disappointed
the album.
for like
Well, see, I didn't mind.
20th
I didn't
time.
mind the album as much. I mean, I know it's still no first 4 albums, but you guys love the Overkill album. I didn't like that album. It bored me to death, really.
Wow. Okay.
I like the 2017 album a lot, but the new one, I didn't like it at all. But that might just be me because I'm old, getting older and all that stuff. So I don't know, but
Kim, there was one we were talking about earlier today that was a disappointment. I can't remember what it was. We were going to bring it up, but do you remember? not too long ago. Ah, fuck, I can't remember.
Album or show or concert, do you mean? Like,
No, it was an album. Uh, yeah, I didn't compile a list. There's not a lot of disappointments. I tend to
yeah.
not explore outside of my realm to be too disappointed, but um,
Oh, it was Immortal.
oh, Immortal. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't a terrible album. It just like there was nothing grabbed me from it. You know, it was just um yeah.
Just paint by numbers.
Well, I just saw today
Black
Immortal
Metal.
was high on another website's list, but different
Yeah.
people like different things.
I've seen
I
it,
have a
like,
lot of disappointments, but I'm not going to get into those.
I've seen the Immortal make a few year-end disappointment lists, so I don't think we're the only ones. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
what
it
about
was just
is there any albums you're looking forward to next year that you know of that are coming out?
yep.
Well, what are they?
Do you guys want me to go first?
Sure,
I'm
go
gonna
first.
I'm gonna steal them all from you. So obviously Deicide just put out a track maybe a week ago on Christmas, I think. Merry Christmas from Deicide, which was a really killer track.
Did it have a
What's it called?
Christmas-like title?
Something Your God. Let's see. Can't remember.
Something Go Fuck Your
But
God and Hell.
yeah. Oh, sorry. Bury the Cross. That's what it's called. Bury the Cross. Great tune. So really looking forward to a new Deicide album. Also, nothing's been announced, but I think probably my favorite find this year, favorite band that I got into this year is a band called Ilton. And they put out a track called Missland this year, and so I went back and listened to their previous album, which I think was like 2022 or something like that, and absolutely fell in love with it. Definitely new favorite band. I think the vocalist could be the next Vortex. I don't know. I mean, just gonna throw that out there. So I'm really, really looking forward to what they do. And if they, I predict, this is a prediction. I predict they're going to put something out in the next year, and I hope they do. And I'm really looking forward to it. And I really want to see them live. So they're now on my live concert bucket list. And lastly, Borknagar, which I think might be my favorite band of all time. And they got an album coming out in a few months. They released a track called Summit not too long ago, in the last couple of weeks. It is a beautiful song. I can't wait to listen to the album. So those
Jason,
are
do you have any other ones?
You let Billy go first.
Billy, do you have any?
Yeah, I definitely have some. I'll go really quick because I know we're running a bit long. New Sabotage. We've been waiting for this for decades. It looked like it was coming out for sure. Then John got injured, so I'm not going to hold my breath. Definitely not. But hopefully we get that. Two great Quebec thrash death bands from the 80s, reformed and are putting out albums in 24, The Dead Brain Cells, DBC, and Oblivion, two of my favorite bands I grew up with. New Judas Priest songs sound pretty cool. That's coming out. Supposed to get the new Merciful Fate, King Diamond. So fingers crossed that finally comes out, one or both, probably one. Looks like a new Anthrax. They're recording the vocals right now. Atheist album, and the last one, Dream Theater. I think it'll be interesting to hear the new album with Mike Portnoy back. But that's what I had.
And
Yeah,
Jason?
I was gonna say new Anthrax in production, like Billy said. Looking forward to that. I don't know how many of these have confirmed, but new Annihilator coming, hopefully 2024. New Dark Angel, which is in production right now. Super excited about that. Been a long time since we had a Dark Angel album. New Exodus coming. New Fear Factory, new Flotsam and Jetsam. I think man, there's so many good ones. The
so
Kerry
much thrash.
King, yeah, the Kerry King solo album.
Oh yeah.
looking forward to that. That should be out in 2024. Yeah, lots of thrash, like Kim said. New Morbid Angel, they're in production right now. New Nile, supposed to be out this year. Looking forward to that.
Wow.
No, Pestilence, Sacred
Really?
Reich, another Rotting Christ, Satyricon. Yeah, lots of Suicidal Tendencies are in production right now, so they're been talking about.
Satyricon, it's been a while for them.
Yeah, it's been a while. New Testament album, they're in production right now too. New Wasp album, in production. Yeah, lots of good stuff. Y&T, I'm a big Y&T fan. They're in production
Cool.
right now too on a new album.
You know what I'm looking forward to?
What?
Seeing Sodom.
Oh yeah, Sodom. We're gonna
Yeah,
be
they're
seeing
great.
Sodom. Yeah.
Yeah, that's gonna
We're
be
seeing them.
so
Where are we
good.
seeing them? In March in
Beyond the
Germany.
no,
Yeah.
beyond the
Oh,
yeah, Germany. So we're gonna see him in a couple months. That's right. At the
Yeah.
Dark Easter Metal meeting in Munich.
Which we'll be covering for
The Metal Pit.
the Metal Pit. So
Yeah, they're a great live band.
yeah.
Yeah, you seen him?
Yeah, quite a few
Yeah.
times.
I really hope to hear Agent Orange. I've never seen them, and that's my bucket list. If they
Oh,
play
yeah.
that,
Yeah.
then I'm happy.
They always play that, so you should be fine.
Nice. Good. Good.
Okay. Yeah, we're kind of running long, so I think I'm gonna wrap it up here. But I want to thank all three of you for joining me on the podcast
Thank you. It's been
and
fun.
for
Thanks,
being,
Blake.
of course, on the Metal Pit website this year, because now we have three people that tour all around the world and see a whole bunch of concerts. So we get to cover more stuff here on our website, the Metal Pit. So it's awesome. And also thank all the other writers, of course, that we have, but I already probably did that in the last couple episodes too.
So is there anything exciting coming up for the Metal Pit that we can expect in 2024 other than what you just said? Any
Spoiler.
Well, I don't have
logo
anything on my.
coming or what?
You'll have
Like
to follow us to find out.
Yeah.
Yes. Do you follow us, Jason?
I don't even know. I barely remember the name sometimes. Shut up.
Okay. So anyway, so next week we'll be back to our regular programming, I guess we'll say, and we'll be back to another classic metal album, but I don't know what that is yet because I haven't looked that far in advance. So we do look forward to a great year next year at the Metal Pit and on our podcast. So I thank everybody for listening, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Cheers, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right.